Hello everybody, my name is Michael, and in today's video what we're going to be doing is this right here. So if that looks interesting to you guys, please carry on and watch the video. And also one more thing before we get into the video, if you enjoy what I do here, please don't forget to leave a like, comment and subscribe. It really helps me out and lets me know you enjoy the video. But with all that out of the way, let's get into that video. Okay, so to start off painting our green Slaad here, what we're going to need is we're going to of course need green. So I'm going to start off with a nice dark green here, whatever type of dark green you want to have as your base tone. And of course what we want to do is we want to paint up that skin of our green Slaad. So everywhere we can see the skin, so as you can see on this model here, he's got a lot of things draping off him and items on him. He's sort of like this cool little shaman look to him. So we want to be painting of course all of those green areas, so being careful to avoid everything that we don't want to paint up. But remember, it's not a massive problem at this stage as we are placing down the base coat layers, so don't worry about it too much. But it's just good to practice some brush control every now and again when you're even doing just your first simple base coat. Okay, so now we've got the base color down for our Slaad. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to come in with some scaly hide. This is a much lighter green, more of sort of like a minty green. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to come in with a dry brush and I'm going to start dry brushing and stippling on areas where I want the highlights to be. So on this miniature, it's got a nice amount of detail on it. We've got nice bumps and ridges all over his skin, so I want to pick out some of those areas, and you can see that's where I'm mainly stippling here, so we get some of that nice texture on those little raised bumps and things all over our Slaad here. As well as that too, I'm also going to be going around dry brushing to pick out those highlights as well. So now we've got that highlighting and stippling done, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to come on with some khaki, and I'm going to be using this for the underbelly of our Slaad here. So what I've done is I've thinned the paint quite a lot down, probably 2-3 times more than I usually would, and I'm just going to slowly build it up over the tummy area and underneath the nice big mouth that our Slaad here has, and this little tentacles it's got drooping down on its face. I'm just going around and slowly building up the layers until it have a sort of like a transition between our green and our khaki colors, just slowly building up. So stippling on some, waiting for a little to dry just a little bit, and then building up that layer slowly more and more in the middle, so we've got a sort of a rough transition between our green and our khaki color. And now with that underbelly all dry, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to come in with a wash. I'm going to be using a Thonian camo shade to do this, which is a green wash. So up to you do here. You could also go with a nice simple brown here, but I want to keep, you know, the nice greens enriched on here. As well as that too, that underbelly we painted up, I want to give that a slight green tint as well. So coming in with a green wash to do this, and of course we're just giving a good nice overall coat of everywhere we've painted up so far, and being careful that it doesn't pull in any places we don't want it to. Now it will pull nicely in between those little bumps on its face that it has nicely sculpted in. I want those areas to be have those little areas where that pulling is going to happen, so I'm not going to worry too much about that, but I don't want it to clump up in there, so I do want to move my brush around. As you can see here, I put a sort of a blob on there and then I move it around the entire piece so I get a nice sort of even layer with the wash. So now that we have that wash completely dry, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to come in with just a little bit of that khaki once again, and I'm just going to be picking out some of the highlighted areas. So just as you can see here, I'm painting up sort of like the edges of the tentacles. I'm going to paint sort of the center of the belly, just where, because we washed it down with that green and we've got a green tint, I want the highlighted parts where the highest points of course are going to be in our original khaki color. As you can see, I'm sort of stippling it on here, trying to give it just a little bit of texture to it as I'm painting it up. Okay, so now we've done some of the highlights on our underbelly area. I'm going to now come in and do it with our skin area, so our green areas here. And as you can see, I'm going to be doing the same sort of thing, coming in with sort of a slight stippling technique, and I'm picking out a lot of those raised bumps and lumps all over our Slaad here. And it's going to give a nice little effect here, especially since we've got those nice rigid bumps, especially on his face. So I want to come in and pick those out, give them a nice highlight. And now this here is again with our minty green, scaly green color here, so it's going to really stick out as we build up the layers eventually on this, slowly going over it, and will give us some nice highlights all over the piece. Okay, so now we have our Slaad's skin all complete, what we're going to do now is come in with this color that I'm using here, which is going to be dark stone. This is sort of a dark browny grayish color, and I'm going to be using it to paint up some of the cloth areas of our miniature here. So I'm going to be using it to paint his sort of pants he's wearing here. As well as that, I'm also going to use it to paint he's got a nice like cloak that's draped over him on his back. I want to be painting that up as well there, and give the loincloth area, I'm going to be doing that in a different color. So as you can see here, I'm painting just the very underneath part, which is just the sort of like the shorts pants that our green Slaad is doing that. And like I said too, I'm also going to be painting up that nice big cloak he has draped over his back, but just the very under part. He also has a lot of straps and dangling parts over as well. I'm not going to be painting that, I'm just going to be painting the actual cloak itself. Okay, so now that I've got that cloak and his pants painted up, I'm going to come in with another brown now. This is going to be NATO brown. This here is your sort of more typical brown color, and I'm going to be using this to paint sort of his loincloth area that he's got on him. So I want to give that a good, nice overall coat, and we want to make sure that we don't accidentally get any paint where we don't want it to, especially with our skin all complete. We want to try and avoid those areas, so practicing our brush control here to keep a nice steady hand. Great for that sort of thing. As well as that too, don't also forget to paint the back of him as well, where he has a nice big part of his loincloth sort of that goes around the back, and you can see this color works really well with the greens too. Okay, so now we've got a loincloth area painted up. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to come in with some black grey. This is a very, very dark grey, basically a black, and I'm going to use this to be painting up all of the straps and belts that our Slaad has on him. Totally up to you what colour you want to do here. You may want to do a different brown, or even the same brown that we've already been using to try and cut down on some of that painting time. Totally up to you what to do here. I'm going to go with this black grey, so we've got some colour separation out, and it's going to look good on our model from a distance, so we have some different colors over the entire piece. So it's just a matter of going around and picking out all of the little straps around it. Okay, so now we have all of his belts painted up. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come in with some cavalry brown. Now cavalry brown is sort of a reddish brown, and I'm going to be using to paint up sort of these nice little pauldrons that our green Slaad has on him here. Now the way I'm going to paint these up is the way I sort of see them here is they look like leaves draped over him that he's turned into like a pauldron. I thought that was a really cool idea, so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to paint them up sort of like leaves, but I'm going to paint them up as sort of like autumn fall leaves, so give them that sort of orangey color. And I think coming in with cavalry brown, using that as a base coat color is going to hopefully come in with that. I'm going to come in with some other colors later to try and give that sort of effect that I'm after. Okay, so now we have those pauldrons painted up. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to come on here with some deck tan. This is sort of an off-white color, and I'm going to be using to be painting up sort of all the like bandages our green Slaad is covered in here. So it's got quite a few of them on here. Now this is totally up to you what color you want to sort of do. I'm sort of going with like a traditional sort of bandage looking color, but you could go for more of like a yellow color so it looks more worn, or even you could make them as different pieces of cloth and go in with a crazy color like purple or something there. That would really work great off all the greens we've got on here. Totally up to you here. I'm making them as they're sort of like bandages he's wrapping himself up in. Okay, so now we have that painted up. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do something I should have done in an earlier step, and that is when we used our khaki color to paint up our Slaad's underbelly here, is I also should have come in and painted up all of these skulls in our khaki color as well to use as the base color for the skulls. Now you might want to be a little bit better than what I did here when you're painting them up and paint them at the same time, so it saves you a little bit of time. Instead, unfortunately, all my paint dried up, forgot about the skulls all over the model, and then when I came to this step here I was like, oh, I forgot about the skulls. So now I'm coming in and painting them again. But so save you some time here and learn from me and paint them up at the same time you do that underbelly. It'll save you a lot of time. Okay, so now we have those skulls painted up. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to come in with some mahogany brown. This is a different brown from what we've been using. I'm going to use a lot of different browns. I like to try and separate out the colors a little bit so you can tell everything's a little bit different, but this is totally a me thing. I want to try to separate everything else, so we've got separate colors all over the miniature here, and it looks more appealing than if I was to make every single brown we use here the same brown. But by all means, if you want to cut down on time and you just want to get this miniature painted and placed on the tabletop, use all the same browns. Super quick and easy. But for me, I want to go a little step above that and make it look a little bit more eye-catching on the table, and I have a little bit more time and make it look a little bit nicer for the video if I paint all the browns a different color so it stands out a little bit more. Okay, so now we have that complete. What I'm going to do now is come in with some skeleton bone, and I'm going to use this for all the highlights on our skulls and skeletons, as you can see here. So as you can see, he's got a nice amount of skulls, so we want to be picking out all of the highest points. So I'm going to be picking out a lot of the ridges on the eyes and the nose, everywhere they're sort of protruding out and hitting that sort of sun and its natural high point, and so I'm going to be picking up that skeleton bone. As well as that too, I also forgot to mention, he has these horns protruding from his back. I'm not sure if that's part of the cloak or if that's actually part of the Slaad himself, but I painted them up with the mahogany brown, and then I'm just going to go in with the skeleton bone that we're using here to use as to highlight the little tips on there, give them sort of like a nice horn look to them. So now I want to add just a little pop of colour, and I'm going to be using electric blue to do this, and it may be a little bit hard to see that we've been painting up so far, but he actually has a couple of little feathers just on his belts on his belly there, so I'm just going to quickly picking those out with our blue, and as you can see, that immediately stands right out on the table, and you can get a really cool eye-catching look from a distance. Okay, so now I've picked out the feathers on our Slaad. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come on with some greedy gold now, and I'm going to be painting up. He has these sort of nice medallions and buckles on him, so I want to paint them up as well, and I'm going with a nice gold, and that's going to work really well with the colors we've used so far. It's going to really help stand out and give you another like eye-catching piece on our miniature to look at, especially from a distance on the tabletop. So giving a little bit of metallic there, and like he's found these over time, giving this nice sort of precious look to his little gold parts. As well as that too, I'm going to pick, he has a little side pocket here on him, so I'm going to be just painting up the little buckles on there with gold as well. So he knows the value of gold, and he's placed it on him as a nice pride and joy. Okay, so now we've got that complete. What we're going to do now is we're going to come in with a wash, and this here is going to be Seraphim Sepia, and I'm going to be using this for all of our bone areas. As well as that, I'm also going to use it for our bandages that he has around him too, since I've gone for sort of like a traditional bandage look. So I want to place that over there as well, and sort of make them like the dirty, worn bandages, because he doesn't clean himself or anything like that, it seems, and I'm going to be painting him sort of like a swamp scene, so I'm going to give him a swampy base, so I don't want to leave them clean, so I want to give them that sort of dirty look, and so giving them a nice coat with the Seraphim Sepia is going to help give that effect as well. Then once we have that wash completely dry, we're going to come in with our second wash, and this is going to be a brown wash, and basically we're going to place this over everything that is, as the name implies, brown. So we want to give everything a good overall wash with that brown. One thing I forgot to say here is that I lost a little bit of footage after this step here, where I placed the wash and where I placed in a few highlights. So what I did is I came back and I picked out some of the highlights on the pauldrons. Like I said, I want to make them sort of more like autumn leaves look. I came in with an orange, and I just picked out the very edges of those, and after here, like I've done with the washes here, I pick out a little bit of the highlights again with our skulls and our leather areas, and just coming with the same colors we used originally, but just picking out those highlighted areas. Unfortunately, I lost all that footage, but I did get the last little bit of footage I need to round this miniature out completely, so you can see the last step to tie it all together. Okay, so now we have all that complete. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come in with some contrast paint here. I'm using Imperial Yellow for this. Totally up to you what you want to use here, but I tell you what, using contrast paint to paint up magical effects is such a great thing to do, and I love doing it. So one little quick tip I give you here is using contrast paint to paint up magical effects, especially when you've got clear pieces on your miniature, like how you have here. He's shooting this nice magical cloud. Painting it up with contrast paint gives you the effect of the thing painted, but also still seeing the translucency nice and easily, so it looks magical in nature. I really love the way it does that, and that's why I always use contrast paint on any sort of clear piece on a miniature. I just really love the effect. But with all that completed, let's check out those glamour shots and see how the miniature came out in the end. And with all that complete, we have finally finished painting up our green Slaad from the Dungeons and Dragons miniature line by WizKids. So I hope this video has been helpful for you guys, whether you want to paint it up as I did here, or you just want to use the video as some inspiration in painting up your own miniatures. Now, with all that said, guys, I'd like to thank you all for watching, and I can't wait to see you all in the next video.